Grayson Locke thought he buried his past in success until he checks into a Savannah hotel and finds Nova, the wife he lost, pregnant and working as a housekeeper. But whose child is she carrying? And can love survive a second chance? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The autumn sun streamed through the windows of Grayson Locke's penthouse apartment in downtown Atlanta. At 35, he had everything money could buy: designer suits, luxury cars, and a view most people only dreamed about. His cell phone rang, and he answered it without checking who was calling. He already knew. It was always business. "Locke," he said sharply. "Mr. Locke, this is Sharon from your office. Just confirming your reservation at the Palmetto Grand Hotel in Savannah for tomorrow. Your investor meeting is set for Thursday morning." Grayson glanced at his watch. "Fine. Have my driver ready at 7. He hung up without waiting for a response. That was his way: efficient, cold, and always in control. People said he was brilliant with money, but terrible with emotions. They weren't wrong. His assistant had already packed his suitcase. 3 custom suits, casual wear for evenings, and all the paperwork he needed for the meeting. Everything in its place. Just how he liked it. Grayson walked to the bar and poured himself a drink. The amber liquid swirled in the crystal glass as he stared out at the city lights. Nights like this, when the silence in his apartment seemed too loud, memories would creep in. Memories of her, Novelis, the only woman who had ever seen past his money and power. The only one who had asked for his heart instead of his wallet. And the only one he'd ever pushed away. "Stop it," he muttered to himself, downing the drink in one gulp. It had been 3 years since she left. 3 years since he'd found her side of the closet empty and her wedding ring on the bathroom counter. 3 years of telling himself it was for the best. The night before she left played in his mind like a movie he couldn't turn off. The doctor's somber face as he told him Nova had lost the baby. Grayson remembered standing there, stiff and silent, unable to comfort her as she cried, unable to cry himself. Instead, he'd buried himself in work for a week straight, leaving her to grieve alone. When he finally came home, really came home, she was gone. He shook his head, pushing the memories away. Tomorrow was about business. That's what he was good at. That's what he understood. The next morning, Grayson's black Mercedes pulled up to the Palmetto Grand Hotel in Savannah. The historic building stood like a testament to old Southern money. All white columns, iron balconies, and the kind of elegance that couldn't be faked. A bellhop rushed to take his bags. "Welcome to the Palmetto Grand, sir." Grayson nodded and walked through the ornate double doors into the lobby. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. Fresh flowers filled the air with a sweet scent. Piano music played softly from hidden speakers. He approached the front desk, pulling out his wallet. Checking in, Grayson Locke. The receptionist, a young woman with a practiced smile, typed his name into the computer. "Yes, Mr. Locke. We have you in our executive suite for 3 nights. If you'll just sign here." Something caught Grayson's eye. Movement to his right from service hallway. A housekeeper pushing a cart of cleaning supplies. Head down, focus on her work. Then she looked up. Time stopped. Nova. Her hair was different, shorter now, framing her face in soft curls. Her uniform was plain, a far cry from the designer clothes she used to wear. But what made his breath catch in his throat was the unmistakable curve of her belly under the blue uniform. She was pregnant. Their eyes met across the lobby. For 1 second, surprise flashed across her face. Then nothing. Just a cool, professional mask sliding into place. "Mr. Locke," she said with a nod. Her voice was calm, controlled. "You're in suite 407. Elevators to your left." She walked past him, back straight, eyes forward, as if he were just another guest, as if they had never shared a home, a bed, a life. Grayson couldn't move, couldn't speak. The woman who had once been his wife was now cleaning hotel rooms and carrying someone else's child. "Sir, your key card." The receptionist was holding it out to him. He took it automatically, his eyes still fixed on Nova's retreating form. The way she moved, slower now with the weight of her pregnancy. The simple gold band missing from her left hand. "Sir, is everything all right?" No, nothing was all right. Nothing had been all right for 3 years. "Fine," he managed to say. Everything's fine. In suite 407, Grayson paced like a caged animal. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of what he'd just seen. Nova. Here. Pregnant. He loosened his tie, feeling like he couldn't breathe. What was she doing working as a housekeeper? She had a master's degree in art history. She'd been a gallery curator when they met. And the baby? Who was the father? Had she remarried? Was she in love? The questions burned in his throat like acid. He pulled out his phone and dialed his assistant. I need information, he said without preamble. Nova Elise. Find out everything you can about her current situation. Where she lives, what she's been doing for the past 3 years, and who she's with. Sir, is this related to the... Just do it, he snapped, ending the call. Grayson walked to the window. From here, he could see Savannah's historic district, the old oak trees draped with Spanish moss. It was beautiful in a melancholy way, like a painting of time gone by. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Turned down service, called a female voice. Not Nova's. Skip it, he called back. He had to see her again, had to talk to her. But what would he say? I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed. I've thought about you every day for 3 years. Who's the father of your baby? None of it seemed right. Grayson grabbed his suit jacket and left the room. He needed a drink. The hotel bar was quiet, just a few business travelers nursing their bourbons. Grayson sat at the far end, where the lighting was dim and no one would bother him. Scotch. Neat, he told the bartender. As he waited for his drink, he saw her again. Nova was walking through the lobby, carrying a stack of fresh towels. Even in the plain uniform, she was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful to him. The bartender set down his drink. Here you go, sir. Grayson barely noticed. His eyes were fixed on Nova as she disappeared into the service elevator. He downed the scotch in one gulp and ordered another. By his third drink, he'd made a decision. He'd extend his stay, find a reason to remain at the hotel. He needed to know what had happened to her. Needed to understand how she'd gone from being his wife to cleaning rooms in a hotel. And he needed to know about the baby. The next morning, Grayson was up early. He'd barely slept, his mind filled with memories and questions. He ordered room service, hoping it might be Nova who delivered it. It wasn't. He had a meeting with investors at 10, but he couldn't focus on the numbers and projections. All he could think about was Nova, somewhere in this same building, carrying a child that should have been his. After the meeting, he returned to the hotel and walked to the front desk. I'd like to extend my stay, he told the receptionist. Indefinitely. The young woman looked surprised. Of course, Mr. Locke. May I ask how long you're planning to stay with us? I'm not sure yet. Business in the city is taking longer than expected. Just keep the room available. He handed over his credit card, the platinum reflecting the overhead lights. Money had always made things easy for him. Except with Nova. She'd never cared about his wealth. It was the one thing he couldn't use to win her over. As he turned from the desk, he saw her again. Nova was wiping down a table in the lobby, her movements slow and careful. She looked tired. Without thinking, he walked toward her. Nova. She straightened, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. A protective gesture that made his heart ache. Mr. Locke, she said formally. Is there something you need for your room? Stop it, he said, his voice low. Stop pretending you don't know me. Her eyes flashed with something. Anger? Pain? Before returning to that professional calm. I'm working, Mr. Locke. If you have a complaint about the housekeeping, you can speak to management. I don't have a complaint. He stepped closer. I want to talk to you. There's nothing to talk about. She picked up her cleaning supplies. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other tables to clean. She walked away, leaving him standing there. Again, that night, Grayson couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Nova, about the baby she was carrying, about the life they could have had together if he'd been different, if he'd known how to love her the way she deserved. His phone rang, breaking the silence. It was his assistant. I have the information you asked for, sir. Grayson sat up. Tell me. Nova Ellis, 30 years old, moved to Savannah 2.5 years ago. Works full-time at the Palmetto Grand Hotel. Lives in an apartment on the east side of the city. No social media presence. No marriage license on record in the state of Georgia. And the father? Who is he? There's no record of her being in a relationship, sir. No man living at her address according to her lease. She appears to be single. Single. The word echoed in his mind. She was alone, pregnant, and working a job that had to be exhausting in her condition. "Is there anything else you need, sir?" "No," he said. "That's all." After hanging up, Grayson stared into the darkness of his hotel room. He thought about Nova, alone in a small apartment, preparing for a baby with no one to help her. The image didn't sit right with him. He'd been selfish before, too focused on his own pain to see hers. He wouldn't make that mistake again. For the next 3 days, Grayson watched and waited. He learned Nova's schedule, which floors she cleaned when she took her breaks. He noticed how she moved more slowly in the afternoons, how she would pause sometimes to catch her breath or rub her lower back. He saw her eating lunch alone in the staff break room, a simple sandwich and an apple. Nothing like the meals they used to share at expensive restaurants. On the 4th day, he was in the hallway when she came to clean his room. "You don't have to do that," he said, startling her as she was about to knock. "I can request a different housekeeper." Nova's eyes narrowed. "I don't need special treatment, Grayson." It was the first time she'd used his name since he arrived. It felt like a small victory. "It's not special treatment. I just thought, in your condition." "My condition?" Her voice was sharp. "I'm pregnant, not sick, and I need this job." The way she said it, "I need this job," made him wince. There had been a time when Nova didn't need to worry about money, when she could pursue her passion for art without counting dollars. "Let me help you," he said quietly. "No." The word was final. "You don't get to swoop in after 3 years and play the hero. I'm doing fine on my own." She pushed her cart past him and into the room. Grayson stood in the hallway, feeling helpless in a way he wasn't used to. In business, there was always a solution, always a way to get what he wanted. But Nova had never played by those rules. A week into his stay, Grayson was sitting in the hotel restaurant when he saw it happen. Nova was clearing a table nearby when she suddenly paled. Her hand gripped the edge of the table, and for a moment, she swayed on her feet. He was out of his seat in an instant, across the room before he could think. Nova, her eyes, when they met his, were clouded with pain. "I'm fine," she insisted, but her voice was weak. "Just got dizzy for a second. You need to sit down." "I can't. I'm working." But her knees buckled, and Grayson caught her before she could fall. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he remembered, despite the pregnancy. "Put me down," she protested, but there was no strength behind it. Not a chance. He carried her through the restaurant, ignoring the curious stares of the other guests. He found a quiet lounge off the main lobby, empty at this hour, and gently set her down on a plush sofa. "Stay here," he ordered. "I'm getting you some water." When he returned with a glass, Nova was sitting up, her color slightly better. She took the water without argument, which worried him more than if she'd fought him. "When did you last eat?" he asked. She looked away. "I had breakfast." "It's 4 in the afternoon, Nova. I've been busy. We're short-staffed today." Grayson ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. "You need to take care of yourself. Think about the baby." At the mention of the baby, something changed in her expression. Sadness, maybe, or fear. "I lost one," she whispered, so quietly he almost missed it. "I won't lose this one too. Not because I needed pride more than help." The words hit him like a physical blow. The baby they had lost. The grief they should have shared but didn't. The way he had failed her when she needed him most. For the first time since she left, Grayson felt the full weight of what he had done. He hadn't just lost his wife. He had abandoned her when she was at her most vulnerable. "I'm sorry," he said, and the words felt inadequate, too small for the magnitude of his regret. "I'm so sorry, Nova." She looked at him, then really looked at him, and he could see the tears she was fighting to hold back. "It's too late for that," she said softly. "Maybe," he agreed, "but I'm still sorry, and I still want to help you now." Nova shook her head, but there was less resistance in the gesture. "Why are you really here, Grayson? Why did you extend your stay?" The question caught him off guard. He could have lied, said it was just business, but he was tired of the walls between them. "Because I saw you," he admitted, "and I couldn't leave." She looked down at her hands, resting on her rounded belly. "This isn't your responsibility. Who is the father?" The question had been burning inside him for days. Nova's eyes met his, and there was something in them he couldn't read. "Someone who wasn't there when I needed him most." Before he could respond, A hotel manager appeared in the doorway of the lounge. "Ms. Ellis, is everything all right? One of the servers said you were unwell." Nova straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. "I'm fine, Mr. Jenkins. Just needed a moment to rest." "Perhaps you should take the rest of the day off," the manager suggested, his eyes flickering between her and Grayson with barely disguised curiosity. "No, really, she'll be taking the rest of the day off," Grayson interrupted, "and I'll be seeing her home safely." The manager nodded, clearly unwilling to argue with a wealthy guest. "Of course, Mr. Locke." After he left, Nova turned to Grayson, anger flashing in her eyes. "You had no right to do that. You nearly fainted, Nova. You need rest." "What I need is my job. I can't afford to lose hours." "I'll take care of it," he said automatically. "No." She stood up, steadier now. "That's exactly what I don't want. Your money. Your guilt. I've been taking care of myself for 3 years, Grayson. I don't need you to start now." She walked out of the lounge, her head high despite the exhaustion he could see in every line of her body. Grayson watched her go, feeling like he was losing her all over again. But this time, he wouldn't let her disappear without a fight. Because somewhere deep inside, beneath the pride and the hurt, was a truth he was only beginning to understand. The baby Nova was carrying might be his. And even if it wasn't, he still loved her. Had always loved her, even when he didn't know how to show it. He just had to find a way to prove it to her before it was too late. The next morning, Grayson sat in his suite, phone pressed to his ear. He hadn't slept much, his mind racing with thoughts of Nova. "I need you to reschedule all my meetings for the next 2 weeks," he told his assistant, "and have my files sent here. I'll be working remotely." "Yes, Mr. Locke. Is everything all right?" "It will be," he said, more to himself than to her. After hanging up, Grayson stared out the window at the Savannah skyline. He'd spent 3 years burying himself in work, using money and power to fill the void Nova had left. None of it had worked. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Housekeeping," called an unfamiliar voice. Grayson opened the door to find a young woman with a cleaning cart. Not Nova. "Where's Ms. Ellis?" he asked without thinking. The housekeeper looked surprised. "She's been assigned to a different floor, sir." Grayson frowned. Had Nova requested the change to avoid him? Or had the management done it after yesterday's incident? "Thank you," he said, closing the door. He needed to find her, needed to talk to her properly, without the barriers of hotel formality between them. But first, he had questions that needed answers. An hour later, Grayson stood outside the office of Mr. Jenkins, the hotel manager. Without bothering to knock, he walked in. Jenkins looked up from his desk, startled. "Mr. Locke, how can I help you today? I want to talk about Nova Ellis." The manager's expression shifted from surprise to caution. "I'm not sure that would be appropriate, sir. Our staff's personal information is confidential." Grayson sat down uninvited. "Cut the act, Jenkins. You moved her to a different floor after yesterday. I want to know why." Jenkins straightened his tie nervously. "Ms. Ellis requested the change herself. She felt it would be more comfortable for everyone involved." "And what exactly do you know about our involvement?" "Only what I've observed, sir. That you seem to have a prior acquaintance with Ms. Ellis." Grayson leaned forward. "She's my wife." The lie came easily, a reflex to protect Nova somehow. They had been divorced for nearly 3 years. But in his heart, she had never stopped being his wife. Jenkins's eyes widened. "Your wife? But her employment application listed her as single." "We're estranged," Grayson said, the word bitter on his tongue. "I didn't know where she was until I checked into this hotel." "I see." Jenkins looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Locke, I don't mean to pry, but given Ms. Ellis's condition—" "Her pregnancy is none of your business," Grayson snapped. "Of course not, sir." Jenkins backpedaled quickly. "I just want to ensure there won't be any disruptions to our other guests." Grayson's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "Nothing at all, sir. It's just that the Palmetto Grand has a certain reputation to maintain. Our clientele expects a certain atmosphere of discretion." The implication was clear. A pregnant housekeeper causing a scene with a wealthy guest would not be tolerated, no matter the circumstances. "Let me make something very clear," Grayson said, his voice dangerously quiet. If anything happens to Nova's position here, if she loses a single hour of work that she wants, I will buy this hotel just to have the pleasure of firing you personally." Jenkins paled. "That won't be necessary, Mr. Locke. Ms. Ellis's job is perfectly secure." "Good." Grayson stood up. "Now, where can I find her?" Nova was changing linens in a room on the 3rd floor when she heard the door open behind her. She knew who it was without turning around. "You can't be in here while I'm cleaning," she said, keeping her back to him. "I need to talk to you," Grayson said, "and you've been avoiding me." She finally turned, her face composed despite the storm of emotions inside her. "I'm working, Grayson. Some of us have to. The doctor said you need a rest." Nova stiffened. "What doctor?" "The one I called to your apartment last night, after I drove you home." He stepped closer. "The one who told me you're working too hard, that your blood pressure is too high, and that you need to be careful for the baby's sake." "You had no right," she said, but her voice lacked its usual fire. She was tired. So tired of fighting, of being strong alone. "Maybe not," he agreed, "but I'm glad I did it anyway." Nova sat down heavily on the edge of the bed she'd been making. Despite her best efforts, tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing this? Why now? You didn't care before." Grayson knelt in front of her, his expensive suit touching the hotel carpet. "That's not true. I cared too much. I just didn't know how to show it." She looked away. "When I lost the baby, you weren't there. You buried yourself in work and left me to deal with it alone." "I know." His voice was thick with regret. "I didn't know how to handle the pain. I thought if I just worked harder, made more money, built something bigger, I could fix it somehow. Fix us. Some things can't be fixed with money, Grayson. I know that now." He hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning inside him. "Nova, the baby you're carrying, is it mine?" She met his eyes then, and the pain he saw there took his breath away. "Yes," she whispered. "It's yours." The word hit him like a physical blow. His child. They were having a baby. Again. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Because you didn't show up for the first baby." Her voice broke. "I couldn't go through that again. Couldn't watch you pull away, bury yourself in work while I carried your child alone. I wouldn't have done that. Wouldn't you?" Nova's eyes were filled with a sadness that cut him to the core. "You don't know how to be there for anyone, Grayson. Not really. You know how to write checks and solve problems with money. But you don't know how to just be present." He couldn't argue with her. Not when he knew she was right. "Let me try," he said simply. "Let me try to be what you need this time." Before she could answer, the door opened and another housekeeper appeared. "Nova, Jenkins is looking for you," the woman said, her eyes darting curiously between them. "He wants to see you in his office right away." Nova stood up, worry creasing her forehead. "Did he say what it's about?" "No, but he didn't look happy." After the woman left, Nova turned to Grayson. "What did you do?" "I told him you're my wife," he admitted, "and that if anything happened to your job, I'd buy the hotel and fire him." "Grayson," she looked horrified. "This job is all I have. You can't just walk in here and start making threats. I was protecting you. I don't need your protection. I need my independence." She moved toward the door. "I have to go fix whatever mess you've made." He caught her arm gently. "Let me come with you." "No." She pulled away. "You've done enough." As she walked out, Grayson felt the familiar ache of watching her leave. But this time was different. This time, he knew the truth. Nova was carrying his child, and no matter what it took, he would find a way to be the man she needed. In Jenkins's office, Nova sat rigidly in the chair across from his desk. "Ms. Ellis," the manager began, his voice carefully neutral. "It has come to my attention that you have a prior relationship with one of our guests." "Mr. Locke and I were married," she said quietly. "We've been separated for almost 3 years." Jenkins nodded, as if confirming something he already suspected. "And the child you're carrying?" Nova's hand went protectively to her belly. "That's personal, Mr. Jenkins. Under normal circumstances, I would agree. However, when a staff member's personal life intersects with a guest's in such a complicated manner, it becomes a concern for the hotel." "I've never let my personal life affect my work," Nova said firmly. "Until yesterday, when you had a medical episode in the restaurant and Mr. Locke carried you through the lobby in front of our guests." Nova felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "That won't happen again." No, it won't, Jenkins agreed. Because effective immediately, you're being transferred to our laundry department. What? Nova's heart sank. Laundry meant no tips, fewer hours, and harder physical work. Why? We feel it would be best if you weren't in direct contact with guests during this delicate time. The laundry position is less visible and will allow you to sit more often. It was a demotion, thinly disguised as concern for her health. Nova knew she should argue, should fight for her position, but exhaustion weighed on her. The baby kicked, a reminder of what was truly important. Fine, she said finally. When do I start? Tomorrow morning. Jenkins slid a paper across the desk. Here's your new schedule. The pay rate remains the same. Small mercies, Nova thought bitterly. As she left the office, she found Grayson waiting in the hallway. What happened? He asked, taking in her expression. I've been moved to laundry, she said flatly, less visible to guests. Apparently, I'm embarrassment. Anger flashed across Grayson's face. I'll talk to him. No. Nova stopped him with a hand on his arm. You've done enough, Grayson. This is my life, my job. I need you to stay out of it. You deserve better than this. Maybe, she agreed. But this is what I have right now, and I need you to respect that. For once, he didn't argue. Instead, he asked, Can I at least drive you home? Please. Too tired to fight, Nova nodded. Grayson's sleek car seemed out of place in the rundown parking lot of Nova's apartment building. The complex was clean but worn, a far cry from the luxury she had once shared with him. You don't have to come up, she said as he parked. I want to. Inside, Nova's apartment was small but neat. A second-hand sofa, a tiny kitchen table with two mismatched chairs, and walls decorated with framed prints. Not the original artwork she used to collect, but still beautiful. In the corner of the living room was a crib, half-assembled, tools scattered around it. You're building it yourself? Grayson asked, kneeling to examine the unfinished crib. It's not that hard, Nova said defensively. The instructions are clear. He picked up the manual, noticing her neat handwriting in the margins. You've been working on this for a while. I can only do a little at a time. My back. She trailed off, not wanting to admit weakness. Grayson looked up at her, standing awkwardly in her own apartment. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, one hand absently rubbing her lower back. Sit down, he said gently. Rest. I'll finish this. To his surprise, she didn't argue. She lowered herself onto the sofa, watching as he removed his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves. As he worked on the crib, Grayson noticed other baby items around the apartment. A small pile of onesies folded on a chair, a package of diapers, a parenting book on the coffee table, a bookmark halfway through. She had been preparing for this baby all alone, while he had been chasing bigger deals and higher profits. When are you due? He asked, tightening a screw on the crib. 6 weeks, Nova replied. The first week of October. Is it? Do you know if it's a boy or a girl? A small smile touched her lips. A boy. A son. He was going to have a son. The knowledge filled him with a mixture of joy and terror. Have you thought of names? A few, she admitted, but I haven't decided yet. They fell into a comfortable silence as Grayson continued working on the crib. It felt strange and yet familiar to be doing something so ordinary together. For years, their relationship had been built on grand gestures and expensive gifts. This simple act of building a crib for their child felt more intimate than anything they had shared before. When he finished, he stepped back to examine his work. The crib stood solid and complete, ready for the baby who would soon sleep in it. Thank you, Nova said quietly. It's the least I could do. He hesitated, then added, I want to do more, Nova. Much more. She looked away. Grayson, just hear me out, he interrupted. I know I failed you before. When we lost the baby, I should have been there. Instead, I ran away into work because I didn't know how to handle the pain. I didn't know how to comfort you when I couldn't even face my own grief. It wasn't just about the baby, Nova said softly. It was everything. You were never really there, even when you were physically present. Always checking emails, taking calls, thinking about the next deal. I know, he admitted. I thought I was building something for us. A legacy. Security. But I was just hiding from the things that scared me. Real feelings. Real connection. And what's different now? she asked, looking up at him with those eyes that had always seen through his defenses. I am. He sat beside her on the sofa, careful to give her space. Seeing you again, knowing we're having a child together, it's made me realize what matters. And it's not money or power or any of the things I've been chasing. Nova looked skeptical. People don't change overnight, Grayson. It hasn't been overnight. It's been 3 years without you. 3 years of emptiness that all the success in the world couldn't fill. He took a deep breath. I'm not asking you to come back to me. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of our son's life. To show you that I can be the man you needed me to be before. Nova was quiet for a long moment, her hand resting on her belly. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but firm. I can't make any promises, but I won't keep our son from you. As long as you're really committed to being in his life, not just when it's convenient or when you're not too busy with work. It was more than he had hoped for. A beginning at least. Thank you, he said simply. As he was about to leave, Nova called his name. Grayson, he turned. I need this job, she said. Even if it's just in the laundry now. I need to support myself. To know that I can. He nodded, understanding. Her independence had always been important to her. It was one of the things he had loved about her. Her strength, her refusal to be just another trophy on his arm. I respect that, he said. But if you ever need anything at all, please ask. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to accept help when you need it. After he left, Nova sat alone in her apartment, looking at the finished crib. It was a small thing, really, a simple piece of furniture, but it represented something she had been missing for so long. Someone to share the burden, someone who cared enough to help. She wasn't ready to trust Grayson again. Not yet. The wounds were still too fresh, the memories of loneliness too vivid. But for the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different this time. The next morning, Grayson was in the middle of a video conference when his phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Locke, this is Tanya from housekeeping at the Palmetto Grand. Nova asked me to tell you she won't be at work today. She's not feeling well. Concern shot through him. He ended the call abruptly and dialed the number. This is Grayson Locke. What's wrong with Nova? Is it the baby? I don't know, sir, Tanya replied. She just called in sick. Said she wasn't feeling well enough to come in. Thank you, he said, already grabbing his keys. 20 minutes later, he was knocking on Nova's apartment door. When there was no answer, worry twisted in his gut. Nova, he called. It's Grayson. Are you all right? Finally, he heard movement inside. The door opened to reveal Nova in a bathrobe, her face pale and drawn. What are you doing here? She asked, but there was no strength behind the words. Tanya told me you were sick. I was worried. Nova sighed and stepped back, allowing him to enter. It's nothing serious. Just some cramping. The doctor said I need to rest today. You call the doctor? He called me, actually, after you sent him here yesterday. She sat on the sofa, wincing slightly. He wanted to check on me. Grayson felt a surge of gratitude toward the doctor. What did he say? That I'm doing too much. That I need to slow down. Her voice broke slightly. That I might lose this baby too if I don't take better care of myself. The fear in her eyes was unbearable to him. Grayson sat beside her, wanting desperately to pull her into his arms, but knowing she might not welcome it. You won't lose this baby, he said firmly. We won't let that happen. I can't stop working, Grayson. I need the money. Let me help you, just until the baby comes. Then you can go back to work if that's what you want. She looked at him, suspicious. And what would you want in return? Nothing, he said honestly. Just the chance to be here, to help you through this. Nova closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm so tired of doing everything alone, she whispered. This time, Grayson did reach for her. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. She let him hold her as she cried, years of pent-up fear and exhaustion pouring out. You're not alone anymore, he promised. Whether you take me back or not, whether you ever forgive me or not, you're not alone in this. I'm here for our son, and for you, if you let me be. Where her tears subsided, Nova pulled back, embarrassed. I am sorry. I don't usually fall apart like that. Maybe you should more often, he suggested gently. You don't have to be strong all the time. She gave him a watery smile. Says the man who couldn't even cry when we lost our first baby. The observation stung, but he knew it was true. I've learned a lot since then, he said quietly. About what really matters. About what kind of man I want to be. Nova studied him, as if trying to see beyond the surface to the truth of his words. Whatever she saw must have reassured her, because she nodded slightly. I need to call the hotel, she said. Tell them I won't be coming back for a while. Let me take care of that, Grayson offered. You rest. To his surprise, she agreed. A small victory, but a significant one. Nova Ellis had always been fiercely independent, reluctant to accept help from anyone, especially him. The fact that she was allowing him to do this small thing for her felt like a breakthrough. As Nova rested, Grayson made calls. First to the hotel, arranging for an extended leave of absence with full pay for Nova. Then to his office, canceling meetings and delegating tasks. And finally, to a local grocery delivery service, ordering everything a pregnant woman might need. By evening, Nova's refrigerator was stocked, her medical leave was secured, and Grayson had set up a temporary office in her small living room, determined to stay as long as she would allow him. As they ate dinner together, simple sandwiches, nothing like the gourmet meals they once shared, Grayson found himself studying Nova's face in the soft lamplight. She looked tired, yes, but also beautiful in a way that transcended physical appearance. There was a strength in her, a quiet dignity that had only grown in their time apart. What? She asked, noticing his gaze. I was just thinking, he said, that I never deserved you. Not then, and certainly not now. Nova set down her sandwich. It wasn't about deserving Grayson. It was about being present, about showing up, not just physically, but emotionally. And you couldn't do that. I want to learn how, he said simply, if you'll give me the chance. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, I've been thinking about names for the baby. What do you think of Elijah? The change of subject might have seemed abrupt, but Grayson understood what she was doing. She was opening a door just a crack, inviting him into a part of her life, their child's life. Elijah, he repeated, trying the name out. Elijah Locke. I like it. Nova's smile was small but real. Me too. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a beginning, a chance to build something new from the ashes of what they had lost. As night fell, Grayson prepared to leave. He had booked a room at a small hotel nearby, unwilling to stay at the Palmetto Grand now that Nova wasn't there. I'll be back in the morning, he promised. If that's all right. Nova nodded, standing in the doorway of her apartment. It's all right. As he turned to go, she added softly, Thank you. For today. You don't have to thank me, he said. I'm just doing what I should have done 3 years ago. That night, alone in his hotel room, Grayson did something he hadn't done since the day Nova left him. He cried, for the baby they had lost, for the years they had wasted, for the pain he had caused the only woman he had ever truly loved. And when the tears finally stopped, he made a silent vow. This time will be different. This time, he would be the man she needed him to be, the man their son deserved as a father, even if it meant letting go of everything else he had built his life around. A week passed, and then another. Grayson fell into a routine that revolved around Nova and her needs. He brought her meals, drove her to doctor's appointments, and finished setting up the nursery in the small second bedroom of her apartment. He worked remotely, taking calls and sending emails while she napped or read in the other room. For the first time in his career, business took a back seat to someone else's needs. Strangely, the world didn't end. His company continued to function. Deals still closed. And in the quiet moments between work and caring for Nova, Grayson found a peace he had never known in his driven, ambitious life. They talked more than they ever had during their marriage. About their childhoods, their hopes, their fears. About the baby they had lost and the son they were about to welcome. I was so angry at you, Nova admitted one evening as they sat on her small balcony, watching the sunset. Not just for not being there when I miscarried, but for everything before that. For all the times you chose work over us. I thought I was providing for us, Grayson said. Building security. We already had security. You were worth millions before I even met you. She shook her head. What I needed was a partner. Someone to share the good days and the bad ones. Someone who would hold my hand through a thunderstorm or laugh with me over a bad movie. Grayson was quiet for a moment, letting her words sink in. I never knew how to do that, he finally said. My father taught me that a man's worth was measured by his success, his wealth. Emotions were a weakness. Vulnerability was unacceptable. Your father was wrong, Nova said simply. I know that now. He looked at her, this woman who had always seen through his carefully constructed facade. You were the first person who ever made me want to be more than just successful. You made me want to be happy. Nova's expression softened. Were you? Happy, I mean, when we were together. Yes, he said without hesitation. But I was also terrified. Terrified of losing you, of not being enough. So I kept working, kept building, thinking that if I just had more, did more, I could keep you safe. Keep us safe. And instead, you lost us both. The truth of her words hurt, but Grayson didn't flinch from it. Yes, I lost everything that mattered. Nova's hand found his on the armrest between them. A small touch, but significant. Not everything, she said softly. Not yet. For the first time in years, hope bloomed in Grayson's chest. Not the fleeting hope of a business deal or a financial victory, but something deeper, more permanent, the hope of a second chance. 2 days later, Grayson returned from a quick trip to his Atlanta penthouse to find Nova's apartment door unlocked. Inside, he found her sitting on the sofa, her face pale, one hand pressed to her belly. Nova, alarm shot through him. What's wrong? I think it's time, she said, her voice surprisingly calm. My water broke about 20 minutes ago. The baby, panic seized him. But it's too early. You said 6 weeks. Babies don't always follow schedules, she said, wincing as a contraction hit. We need to go to the hospital. Grayson moved on autopilot, grabbing the hospital bag Nova had packed, helping her to her feet, guiding her to his car. His mind was racing, fear battling with determination. This was happening. Their son was coming. And this time, Grayson would not run away from the emotion, the messiness, the reality of it all. This time, he would be there for every moment, no matter how difficult. As he drove through the Savannah streets, one hand firmly holding Nova's, Grayson made a silent promise to the son he hadn't yet met. I will be the father you deserve, the man your mother always needed me to be. This time, I will not fail either of you. The hospital corridors were bright and sterile as Grayson rushed alongside Nova's wheelchair. A nurse moved quickly, guiding them toward the maternity ward. How far apart are your contractions? The nurse asked Nova. About 5 minutes, Nova replied, gripping the arms of the wheelchair as another pain hit. Maybe less now. The nurse nodded. And you're how many weeks? 34, Nova said, her voice tight with pain and worry. He's early. Grayson's heart hammered in his chest. Early. Too early. The word echoed in his mind as they entered the delivery room. Everything happened quickly after that. Nurses helped Nova onto the bed. A doctor appeared, checking monitors and speaking in calm, measured tones that did nothing to ease Grayson's fear. Mr. Locke, a nurse touched his arm. Are you staying for the delivery? The question caught him off guard. 3 years ago, he would have found an excuse to leave, would have waited in some sterile waiting room, checking emails, making calls, anything to avoid the messiness and emotion of this moment. Yes, he said firmly. I'm staying. The nurse handed him a set of scrubs. Put these on, then. As he changed, Grayson could hear Nova's breathing becoming more labored. When he returned to her side, her face was flushed, her hair damp with sweat. Grayson, she said, reaching for his hand. I'm scared. 3 simple words. Words she had never said to him during their marriage. Nova had always been the strong one, the one who faced everything with quiet determination. I'm here, he said, taking her hand in both of his. I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. The labor progressed rapidly. Too rapidly, according to the worried glances the doctor exchanged with the nurses. Nova's blood pressure was rising. The baby's heartbeat was showing signs of distress. We need to consider an emergency C-section, the doctor finally said. The baby is in breech position, and with your blood pressure this high, Ms. Ellis, I'm concerned about complications. Fear flashed across Nova's face. Is he going to be okay? We're going to do everything we can, the doctor assured her. But we need to move quickly. As they prepared Nova for surgery, a nurse turned to Grayson. Sir, you'll need to wait outside during the procedure. No, the word came from Nova, surprising everyone. I want him with me. Please. The doctor nodded. He can stay, but he needs to remain at the head of the bed and stay out of the way. Grayson held Nova's hand as they wheeled her into the operating room. The lights were harsh, the atmosphere tense. He focused on her face, refusing to let his fear show. Talk to me, she whispered as the anesthesiologist prepared her. Distract me. Do you remember our first date? He asked, the memory suddenly vivid in his mind. That little Italian restaurant in Buckhead. A small smile touched Nova's lips despite her pain. You spilled red wine all over your white shirt. And you laughed, he said, stroking her hair back from her forehead. Not at me, but with me. It was the first time I realized it was okay to be imperfect around you. You were always trying so hard to be perfect, she murmured. I just wanted you to be real. The procedure began. Grayson kept his eyes on Nova's face, his hand steady in hers. I've thought about you every day for 3 years, he admitted quietly. Every success felt empty because you weren't there to share it. Nova's eyes, clouded with pain and medication, focused on his. Why didn't you look for me? I thought you deserved better, he said simply. Better than a man who couldn't be there when you needed him most. A tear slipped down her cheek. I needed you to fight for me, to show me I was worth fighting for. You are, he said fervently. You always were. I was just too blind to see it. Their conversation was interrupted by a cry, tiny, indignant, and perfect. Their son had arrived. Is he okay? Nova asked anxiously, unable to see what was happening on the other side of the surgical curtain. The doctor's voice was reassuring. He's small, but his lungs are certainly working well. Grayson stood, peering over the curtain to catch his first glimpse of his son. The baby was tiny, his skin reddish and wrinkled, but to Grayson, he was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He's perfect, he told Nova, his voice thick with emotion. He's absolutely perfect. The nurses quickly cleaned and wrapped the baby, then brought him to Nova. She reached out with trembling hands, touching his tiny face with a gentleness that made Grayson's heart ache. Hello, Elijah, she whispered. You're early, but you're right on time. As Grayson watched Nova with their son, something broke open inside him. All the emotions he had spent a lifetime suppressing, joy, fear, love, hope, rushed through him like a flood. And for the first time since he was a child, Grayson Locke cried openly, without shame or hesitation. Tears of wonder and gratitude and fierce, protective love for the tiny family he had almost lost. The next few hours passed in a blur. Elijah, despite being 6 weeks premature, was surprisingly healthy. Small, yes, just over 5 pounds, but with strong lungs and a determined grip. Nova, however, was not doing as well. The doctors were concerned about her blood pressure, which remained dangerously high after the delivery. They moved her to a private room for close monitoring, Elijah in a clear bassinet beside her bed. Grayson never left their side. He canceled meetings without a second thought, delegated urgent business matters with brief emails, and focused entirely on Nova and their son. When a nurse showed him how to hold Elijah, how to support his tiny head and wrap him securely in a blanket, Grayson felt a surge of pride mixed with terror. This tiny human was his responsibility now. His son. You're a natural, Nova commented from her bed, watching them together. Grayson looked up, surprised. I've never even held a baby before. Some things you don't need to practice, she said softly. Some things you just know in your heart. That night, as Nova slept, Grayson sat in a chair beside her bed, Elijah cradled against his chest. The hospital was quiet, just the soft beeping of monitors and the occasional footsteps of nurses in the hallway. I made a lot of mistakes with your mother, he whispered to his sleeping son. I thought money and success were what mattered. I was wrong. Elijah shifted slightly, his tiny hand finding Grayson's finger and holding on. I promise you this, Grayson continued, his voice barely audible. I will be there for every moment, the good and the bad. I will never be too busy for you. I will never put anything ahead of you or your mother. It was a vow, spoken in the quiet of a hospital room, but as binding to Grayson as any contract he had ever signed. The next morning, Dr. Patel came to check on Nova. His expression was serious as he reviewed her chart. "Your blood pressure is still too high," he told her, "and your kidney function is showing some concerning signs. I'd like to keep you here for a few more days." Nova's face fell. "But Elijah is doing well. Can't I take him home?" "I'm afraid not yet," the doctor said gently. "He needs to stay in a hospital until he reaches at least 5.5 pounds. And you need to stay until your blood pressure stabilizes." After the doctor left, Nova turned to Grayson, tears in her eyes. "I just want to take our baby home. I want to put him in the crib you built. I want things to be normal." Grayson sat on the edge of her bed, taking her hand in his. "We'll get there," he promised. "It might take a little longer than we hoped, but we'll get there." Nova studied his face. "You've changed," she said softly. The old Grayson would be climbing the walls by now, desperate to get back to work. The old Grayson was a fool, he said simply. He didn't understand what really mattered. She smiled slightly. "And the new Grayson does. He's learning." Grayson squeezed her hand. "Every day, he's learning." Over the next few days, a routine developed. Grayson would spend his days at the hospital with Nova and Elijah, then return to her apartment at night to shower and sleep for a few hours before starting again. He brought her fresh clothes, her favorite books, anything to make the hospital's stay more bearable. He learned to change Elijah's diapers, to feed him with the tiny bottles of formula the nurses provided, to soothe him when he cried. And each day, he fell more deeply in love with his son and with the woman who had given him this second chance. On the 5th day, as Grayson was heading to the hospital cafeteria to get coffee, he ran into Jenkins, the hotel manager, in the hallway. "Mr. Locke," Jenkins said, looking surprised. "I heard Ms. Ellis had her baby. I came to offer congratulations from the staff." Grayson's instinct was to brush past the man, but he stopped himself. "That's thoughtful of you." Jenkins shifted uncomfortably. "How is she doing? And the baby?" "Elijah is getting stronger every day," Grayson said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "Nova is having some complications, but the doctors are optimistic." "I'm glad to hear it." Jenkins hesitated, then added, "The staff took up a collection for her. 4 baby gifts. I have in my office at the hotel." The gesture surprised Grayson. He had assumed the hotel staff saw Nova as just another housekeeper, another employee. But clearly, she had made an impact on them. "That's very kind," he said. "I'm sure Nova will appreciate it." Jenkins nodded, then asked the question Grayson had been expecting. "Will she be coming back to work after the baby?" "That's up to Nova," Grayson said firmly. "But whatever she decides, she won't be worrying about money." "I see." Jenkins looked relieved. "Well, please give her our best wishes." After Jenkins left, Grayson continued to the cafeteria, thinking about the future. He hadn't discussed it with Nova yet. What would happen after she and Elijah were released from the hospital? Would she want to stay in Savannah? Would she consider moving back to Atlanta with him? Would she want it in her life at all, beyond co-parenting their son? The uncertainty was new to him. Grayson was used to controlling every aspect of his life, planning 5 steps ahead. But with Nova, he was learning to take each day as it came, to be present in the moment rather than always looking to the future. When he returned to Nova's room, he found her sitting up in bed, a nurse helping her hold Elijah. The baby was wrapped in a blue blanket, only his tiny face visible. "Look who's awake and hungry," Nova said, smiling up at Grayson. "He has your appetite." Grayson set down the coffee cups and moved to her side. "He's beautiful," he said, still amazed every time he looked at his son, just like his mother. The nurse smiled at them. "You 3 make a lovely family." Family. The word echoed in Grayson's mind long after the nurse had left. A family. It was something he had never truly had, not even during his marriage to Nova. He had been too distant, too focused on work to appreciate what was right in front of him. "I ran into Jenkins in the hallway," he told Nova as she fed Elijah. "He says the hotel staff took up a collection for baby gifts. Nova's milid. That was nice of them. He also asked if you'd be coming back to work." Her smile faded slightly. "I don't know yet. I haven't thought that far ahead." Grayson took a deep breath. Nova, I know we haven't talked about what happens next. After you and Elijah leave the hospital. She looked up at him, her expression guarded. What do you want to happen? It was a loaded question, one that could have 1,000 different answers. But for Grayson, there was only one that mattered. I want us to be a family, he said simply. You, me, and Elijah. I want to wake up every morning and see your face. I want to be there for every milestone in our son's life. I want a second chance to be the man you deserve the first time around. Nova was quiet for a long moment, her eyes on Elijah as he nursed. And what about your work? Your life in Atlanta? None of it matters without you, Grayson said honestly. I can work from anywhere. Sell the company. Start over completely. Whatever it takes. I don't want you to give up everything for us, Nova said softly. That's not sustainable. Eventually, you'd resent us for it. Never, he insisted. But I understand your concern. So how about this? I keep the company, but I restructure it. Delegate more. Create a better balance. No more 80-hour weeks or middle-of-the-night calls. Home by dinner every night. Weekends off. Real vacations. Nova raised an eyebrow. The Grayson Locke I knew would never agree to those terms. I'm not that man anymore, he said. At least, I'm trying not to be. She studied him, as if trying to see into his soul. And what if I said I want to stay in Savannah? That I don't want to go back to Atlanta? Then I'll buy a house here, he said without hesitation. Or we can find a new place together, wherever you want to go. New York, Paris, a cabin in the mountains. It doesn't matter to me as long as we're together. Elijah finished feeding, and Nova carefully shifted him to her shoulder, patting his back gently. And what if I said I'm not ready to be your wife again? That I need time? The question hurt, but Grayson understood it. Trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. Then I'll wait, he said simply. I'll be whatever you need me to be, co-parent, friend, partner. I'll earn your trust again, day by day, for as long as it takes. Nova's eyes filled with tears. You really have changed, haven't you? Almost losing you twice will do that to a man, he said, reaching out to touch her cheek. I love you, Nova. I always have. I just didn't know how to show it before. She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing briefly. I never stopped loving you, she admitted quietly. Even when I hated you for leaving me alone, I still loved you. It was the closest thing to forgiveness he had heard from her, and it filled him with hope. Not certainty. Grayson was learning that life offered few certainties but hope. And for now, that was enough. 2 days later, Dr. Patel brought good news. Nova's blood pressure had stabilized, and Elijah had gained enough weight to be released from the hospital. You can take your son home tomorrow, he told them, smiling at the joy on their faces. Both of us? Nova asked anxiously. I can go home too? Yes, but with conditions, the doctor said firmly. Bed rest for at least a week. Limited activity for another 2 weeks after that. And you'll need to come in for checkups twice a week until your blood pressure returns to normal. I'll make sure she follows orders, Grayson promised. After the doctor left, Nova turned to Grayson, her expression serious. I've been thinking about what you said, about us being a family. Grayson's heart raced. And I want to try, she said softly. Not picking up where we left off, but starting something new. Something better. Relief and joy washed over him. That's all I'm asking for. A chance. But, she added, I'm not ready to leave Savannah yet. I made a life here. It's not much, but it's mine. I built it from nothing when I thought I had nothing left. Grayson nodded, understanding. Then we'll stay here. I'll find us a place with a yard for Elijah to play in when he's older. Something closer to town, better than your current apartment. Nova's Milit. Always the planner. Old habits, he admitted with a sheepish grin. But this time we'll plan together. Every decision we make as a team. She reached for his hand. I'd like that. That night, after Nova and Elijah had fallen asleep, Grayson slipped out of the hospital room and made a phone call. Rebecca, it's Grayson, he said when his assistant answered. I need you to start the process of relocating the company headquarters to Savannah. Savannah, she repeated, sounding surprised. But sir, we just finished the new offices in Atlanta. Plans change, he said simply. And I need you to contact my realtor. I want to look at houses here as soon as possible. Something with a yard. At least 3 bedrooms. Near good schools. Of course, Mr. Locke. She paused, then asked, "Is this about Ms. Ellis and the baby?" "It's about family," Grayson replied, "and finally getting my priorities straight." After hanging up, he returned to Nova's room. She was awake, watching Elijah sleep in his bassinet. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing his expression. "Perfect," he said, sitting beside her on the bed. "Just taking care of some details." Nova leaned against him, her head finding that spot on his shoulder where it had always fit so perfectly. "I was thinking," she said softly. "Elijah needs a middle name. Did you have something in mind?" She nodded. "James, after my father." "Elijah James Locke," Grayson said, testing the name. "It's strong, dignified, like his father," Nova said, looking up at him with a warmth he had feared he would never see again. Grayson pressed a kiss to her forehead, overwhelmed by the second chance he had been given. "I promise you both," he whispered. "I will never take this for granted. Not for a single day." The next morning, as they prepared to leave the hospital, Grayson received a text message from his realtor. "I found it," he told Nova, unable to contain his excitement. "The perfect house. It's in a historic district, a beautiful old Victorian with a fenced yard and a wraparound porch. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, completely renovated but with all the original charm intact." Nova looked amused at his enthusiasm. "You haven't even seen it in person." "I trust my realtor," he said, "and we can look at it together tomorrow, if you're feeling up to it. If you don't like it, we'll keep looking." As a nurse helped Nova into a wheelchair, hospital policy for all departing patients, Grayson carefully lifted Elijah from his bassinet. The baby was wrapped in a soft blue blanket, a tiny knit cap on his head to protect him from the autumn chill. "Ready to see your new home, little man?" Grayson whispered, cradling his son close. The nurse pushed Nova's wheelchair toward the elevator, Grayson walking beside them, Elijah secure in his arms. As they passed the nurse's station, several nurses called out good wishes and congratulations. "You're quite the celebrity," Grayson teased Nova. "Everyone knows you here." "I had a lot of time to talk to them while you're getting coffee or making calls," she explained. "They've been so kind to me." In the lobby, they were surprised to find a small group waiting for them. Tanya from housekeeping, several other hotel staff members, and even Jenkins himself stood holding balloons and a large gift basket. "Surprise," Tanya called as they approached. "We couldn't let you leave without saying goodbye to baby Elijah." Nova's eyes filled with tears at the unexpected show of support. These people, who had been her colleagues for such a short time, had become something like family to her during her years in Savannah. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "All of you. This means so much." Jenkins stepped forward, looking unusually humble. "Ms. Ellis, Nova, we wanted you to know that your job will be waiting for you if you decide to come back after your maternity leave. Any position you want, not just laundry." Grayson watched Nova's face, curious about her reaction. To his surprise, she smiled warmly at the manager. "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. I'll let you know what I decide." After accepting the gifts and saying goodbye to her colleagues, they finally made their way out of the hospital. Grayson's car was waiting at the entrance, a brand new car seat already installed in the back. "What did you do this?" Nova asked as he carefully secured Elijah in the seat. "Yesterday," Grayson replied. "I wanted everything to be ready for you both." As they drove through the streets of Savannah toward Nova's apartment, Grayson couldn't help glancing in the rearview mirror every few seconds, checking on his sleeping son. "He's fine," Nova said, noticing his concern. "Babies sleep a lot." "I know," Grayson said, though he didn't, not really. "I just can't believe he's actually here. That we're actually here together." Nova reached across the console to take his hand. "It's real," she assured him. "All of it." At her apartment, Grayson helped Nova inside, then returned to the car for Elijah. As he carried his son up the stairs, he marveled at how natural it felt, how right. Inside, Nova was already in her bedroom, changing into more comfortable clothes. Grayson took Elijah to the nursery, carefully placing him in the crib he had finished building just weeks ago. "Welcome home, son," he whispered, adjusting the baby's blanket. "Welcome home." When he returned to the living room, he found Nova standing there, looking around her small apartment with a strange expression. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing," she said, smiling at him. "It's just, I never thought I'd be bringing our baby home to this place. And I certainly never thought you'd be here with us." Grayson moved to her side, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Life has a way of surprising us." "Yes, it does," she agreed, leaning into him. "Sometimes in the best possible ways." The next few days passed in a blur of feedings, diaper changes, and precious moments of quiet wonder. Grayson stayed at Nova's apartment, sleeping on the sofa despite her offers to share the bed. "No pressure," he had told her. "We're starting fresh, remember? One step at a time." True to his word, he handled much of the baby care, insisting that Nova rest as the doctor had ordered. He learned quickly, his hands becoming more confident with each diaper change, each swaddling, each midnight feeding. During Elijah's nap times, they talked. Really talked, in a way they never had during their marriage. About their hopes for their son, about their fears, about the mistakes they had both made in the past. "I should have fought harder," Nova admitted one afternoon as they sat on her small balcony, a baby monitor beside them. "Instead of just leaving when things got hard. I should have made you see what was happening to us. And I should have listened," Grayson replied. "Should have put you first, instead of always chasing the next deal, the next acquisition." It wasn't always easy, this new honesty between them. There were moments of tension, old hurts resurfacing, sharp words quickly regretted. But through it all, there was a sense of building something stronger, more resilient than what they had before. On the fifth day, Grayson took Nova and Elijah to see the house he had found. It was even more beautiful in person, a stately Victorian with gingerbread trim, tall windows that filled the rooms with light, and a yard shaded by ancient oak trees. "It's perfect," Nova whispered as they stood in what would be Elijah's room, a large space with built-in bookshelves and a window seat. "But Grayson, it must cost a fortune." "That doesn't matter," he said, watching her face. "What matters is if you can see us here. If you can see this becoming our home." Nova looked around, her expression softening. "Yes," she said finally. "I can see it." "Then it's ours," Grayson said simply. "I made an offer yesterday, contingent on your approval. We can move in next week." "Next week?" She looked shocked. "That's so fast." "I may have included a significant bonus to expedite the closing," he admitted with a smile. "Some things money is still useful for." Nova shook her head, but she was smiling too. "You're incorrigible." "Only when it comes to taking care of my family," he said, the words still new and precious on his tongue. "My family," he repeated, liking the sound of it. As they were leaving the house, Grayson's phone rang. He checked the caller ID and frowned slightly. "I need to take this," he told Nova. "It's the board chairman." He stepped away to answer the call, and Nova watched him, a familiar worry creeping into her heart. Was this how it would start again? The slow pull of business, taking him away from her and Elijah, one call at a time? But when Grayson returned, his expression was resolute. "The board wants an emergency meeting tomorrow in Atlanta. They're concerned about my extended absence and the rumors of relocating the company." "You have to go," Nova said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "No," Grayson said firmly. "I don't. I told Charles that if they want to meet with me, they can come to Savannah. I'm not leaving you and Elijah right now." The simple declaration, delivered without drama or hesitation, told Nova more than any grand gesture could have. This was indeed a different Grayson from the man who had let her walk away 3 years ago. "I love you," she said suddenly, the words surprising even her. "I never stopped, even when I thought I should." Grayson's face transformed with joy. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, pulling her gently into his arms, mindful of Elijah sleeping against her chest in his carrier. "Say it again," he whispered. "I love you," Nova repeated, her eyes meeting his. "And I'm ready to try again. Really try, not just co-parent or be friends. I want us to be a family, in every sense of the word." Grayson touched her face with a gentleness that still surprised her. "I love you too," he said. "More than I ever knew was possible. You and Elijah are everything to me." As they stood together on the porch of what would soon be their new home, Nova felt a peace she had not known in years. The road ahead would not be easy. They both had too much history, too many old habits to overcome for it to be simple. But for the first time, she believed they could make it. Together, as a family. The way it always should have been. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Nova's apartment, casting warm light across the living room, where Grayson sat with Elijah in his arms. The baby was awake, his dark eyes studying his father's face with what seemed like curious intensity. "You're a smart one, aren't you?" Grayson whispered, gently stroking his son's cheek. "Just like your mother." It had been 2 weeks since they brought Elijah home from the hospital. 2 weeks of middle-of-the-night feedings, diaper changes, and moments of pure wonder that Grayson wouldn't have traded for all the business deals in the world. Nova appeared in the doorway of the bedroom, looking more rested than she had in days. The doctor had finally lifted her bed rest restrictions yesterday, though she was still supposed to take things easy. "Good morning," she said, smiling at the sight of them together. "How long have you two been up?" "About an hour," Grayson replied. "I thought I'd let you sleep in. You needed it." Nova came to sit beside them, leaning against Grayson's shoulder as she gazed down at their son. "I can't believe how much he's grown already." "The pediatrician said he's doing great," Grayson reminded her. "Right on track despite being early." Nova nodded, but he could sense her anxiety. It had been there since they brought Elijah home, a constant worry that something might go wrong, that they might lose this baby too. "He's strong," Grayson assured her. "Like his mother." She smiled at that, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "The movers are coming tomorrow," she said, changing the subject. "Are you sure we're ready?" "Everything's arranged," he promised. "The house is ready. The nursery is painted and furnished. All we have to do is show up with Elijah and whatever personal items you want to bring." The past 2 weeks had been busy beyond just caring for a newborn. Grayson had finalized the purchase of the Victorian house, hired decorators to prepare it according to Nova's preferences, and dealt with the board of his company, who had indeed come to Savannah for their meeting, gathering in a conference room at a downtown hotel while Grayson presented his plans for the future. "We should start packing your things," he suggested. "The clothes and personal items the movers won't handle." Nova looked around her small apartment, her expression thoughtful. "There's not much I need to take. Most of this furniture was here when I rented the place." "What about your artwork?" Grayson asked. "The prints on the walls?" "Yes, those," she agreed. "And my books. My clothes. Elijah's things." "Your life here," Grayson said softly, understanding her hesitation. This apartment, humble as it was, represented the independence she had built after leaving him. Leaving it was another leap of faith. "Our new life is waiting," she said, as if reading his thoughts. "It's time to move forward." Grayson shifted Elijah to one arm so he could wrap the other around Nova. Together, he promised. Every step of the way. The Victorian house looked even more beautiful, with morning sunlight filtering through its stained glass, transom windows, casting colorful patterns across the polished hardwood floors. Nova stood in the center of the spacious foyer, Elijah sleeping against her chest in his carrier, her eyes wide as she took it all in. "It's really ours?" she asked, still sounding disbelieving despite having seen the house before. "All ours," Grayson confirmed, setting down the suitcases he'd carried in. "Want the grand tour again?" He led her through the rooms, now fully furnished with a tasteful blend of antiques and modern pieces. The kitchen gleamed with new appliances. The living room was cozy yet elegant, with comfortable sofas and shelves waiting for Nova's books. Upstairs, the master bedroom was a peaceful retreat in soft blues and creams. A door connected it to a smaller room that had been set up as a temporary nursery, allowing them to keep Elijah close during his first months. But it was the main nursery across the hall that took Nova's breath away. The room had been transformed since their first visit. The walls were painted a soft green, with a mural of a forest on one wall. A beautiful wooden crib, much nicer than the one Grayson had assembled in her apartment, stood in the center, with a matching changing table and dresser against the walls. "Grayson," Nova whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "It's perfect. Do you like it?" he asked, suddenly uncertain. "I try to remember everything you said you wanted in a nursery when we were expecting the first time." Nova turned to him, her expression soft with wonder. You remembered all that? After 3 years. I remember everything about you, he said simply. Every dream you shared. Every hope for our future. I just didn't listen well enough before. She carefully unfastened the sleeping Elijah from his carrier and placed him in his new crib. The baby sighed, but didn't wake, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. I never thought we'd get here, Nova admitted, watching their son sleep. After I found out I was pregnant again, I was so scared, Grayson. Scared of doing it alone. Scared of telling you and having you disappoint me again. Grayson moved to stand beside her at the crib. I'm sorry I made you feel that way, he said, his voice low with regret. Sorry I gave you reason to doubt me. But you're here now, she said, looking up at him with eyes that held forgiveness instead of accusation. You've been here every day, every night. You changed more diapers than I have. You've walked the floor with him at 3 a.m. so I could sleep. It's what fathers are supposed to do, Grayson said. What partners are supposed to do. Nova's milid. Yes, but you had to learn that. And you did. She leaned up and kissed him then, a real kiss. Not the hesitant touches they had shared in recent days, but something deeper. A promise. A new beginning. When they parted, Grayson rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered. I love our family. I love you too, Nova replied. Enough to give us another chance. The following week brought another change, as Grayson officially opened the new Savannah office of his company. It was a smaller operation than the Atlanta headquarters, but sufficient for his needs as he transitioned to a new way of working. I'll be home by 5, he promised Nova as he left for his first day. Earlier if I can manage it. Nova smiled, Elijah in her arms. We'll be here. And true to his word, Grayson returned home at 4:30, bringing dinner with him so Nova wouldn't have to cook. This became their new normal. Grayson working shorter hours, often from his home office when possible, always prioritizing Nova and Elijah over business concerns. For a man who had once regularly worked 80-hour weeks, it was a dramatic shift. But to his surprise, his company didn't suffer. If anything, the forced efficiency made him a better leader, more focused on what truly mattered. As autumn deepened into winter, their little family settled into a comfortable routine. Nova regained her strength, her follow-up appointments with Dr. Patel showing steady improvement in her health. Elijah thrived, growing from the tiny premature baby into a robust infant with a strong grip and alert eyes. One evening in early December, as they sat in the living room with a fire crackling in the fireplace, Nova broached a subject they hadn't discussed in a while. I got a call from the Savannah Arts Center today, she said, looking up from the book she'd been reading. They're looking for a new gallery curator. Grayson set down his tablet, giving her his full attention. Are you interested? I think I might be, she admitted. Not right away. Elijah is still so young. But maybe in a few months, part-time at first. I think that's wonderful, Grayson said, meaning it. You were always brilliant at your curatorial work. Nova smiled, pleased by his support. It would be good to get back to it someday. To have something that's just mine again. Whatever you want to do, I'm behind you, Grayson assured her. We'll figure out childcare, schedules, whatever you need. Thank you, she said softly, for understanding that I need this. I want you to be happy, he said simply, in every part of your life. They fell silent for a moment, the only sounds the crackling fire and Elijah's soft breathing from the baby monitor. I had lunch with Jenkins yesterday, Nova said, changing the subject. Grayson raised an eyebrow. The hotel manager? What did he want? To offer me my job back. Actually, she said, looking amused. With a substantial raise and the title of guest services manager. And what did you tell him? I thanked him but declined, Nova replied. It's not the path I want to take. But it was nice to be asked, to know that my work there was valued. Grayson nodded, understanding. You made an impression on them. On everyone you meet. Including you, she teased. Especially me, he said, his voice turning serious. You changed my entire life, Nova. Twice. First when you left me, forcing me to face what I had become. And then when you gave me a second chance, showing me what life could be. Nova set her book aside and moved to sit beside him on the sofa. We've both changed, she said, resting her head on his shoulder. Maybe that's why it's working this time. It is working, isn't it? Grayson asked, still sometimes amazed by how far they had come in such a short time. Yes, she agreed. It really is. Christmas approached, bringing with it a flurry of activity. It would be Elijah's first Christmas, and though he was too young to remember it, both Nova and Grayson wanted to make it special. They decorated the house together, something they had never done during their marriage. Back then, Grayson had always been too busy, leaving such details to Nova or professional decorators. But this year, he helped string lights along the porch railings, assisted Nova in selecting a perfect pine tree for the living room, and even attempted to bake Christmas cookies, with mixed results that left them both laughing at the misshapen gingerbread man. On Christmas Eve, they bundled Elijah in a tiny red sweater and took him to see the holiday lights in the historic district. Snow was rare in Savannah, but the night was crisp and clear, the stars bright overhead as they strolled along the decorated streets. "It's perfect," Nova said, her arm linked through Grayson's as he pushed Elijah's stroller. "All of it. Almost perfect," Grayson replied mysteriously. When they returned home, he asked Nova to wait in the living room while he put Elijah to bed. The baby, tired from the excitement, fell asleep quickly. Grayson returned to find Nova curled up on the sofa, gazing at their Christmas tree. The multicolored lights cast a warm glow over her face, highlighting the contentment in her expression. "Happy?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Very," she confirmed, smiling at him. "Happier than I ever thought I could be again." "I want to make you even happier," Grayson said, suddenly nervous in a way he hadn't been since their first date. "If that's possible." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Nova's eyes widened. "Grayson, I know we're already building a life together," he said, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring. Not ostentatiously large like the one he had given her the first time, but a more elegant design with a center stone surrounded by smaller sapphires. "But I want to do this right. I want to make promises to you that I'll actually keep this time." He slid from his sofa to one knee, taking her hand in his. "Nova Ellis, will you marry me? Again? For real this time, with a marriage based on love and partnership, and putting each other first." Tears filled Nova's eyes as she looked from the ring to his face. "Are you sure? After everything we've been through?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," Grayson said firmly. "These past months with you and Elijah have been the happiest I've ever known. I want a lifetime more of them." Nova wiped away a tear. "Then yes," she said, her voice steady despite her emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you again." Grayson slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. As they kissed beneath the twinkling lights of their Christmas tree, he silently renewed the vow he had made in the hospital the day Elijah was born. This time would be different. This time, he would be the husband she deserved, the father their son needed. This time, nothing would come before the family they had created together. Spring came to Savannah, bringing with it a profusion of azaleas and dogwoods that transformed the city into a riot of color. In the garden of the Victorian house, Nova had planted flowers that now bloomed in cheerful beds along the walkway and around the wraparound porch. On a perfect April day, with sunshine warming the air and a gentle breeze stirring the Spanish moss in the oak trees, Nova and Grayson were married for the second time. The ceremony was held in their garden, with only a small group of friends in attendance. Grayson's closest business associates, Nova's friend from the Arts Center, where she had recently begun working part-time, and even a few of her former colleagues from the Palmetto Grand Hotel. Unlike their first wedding, which had been an elaborate society affair with hundreds of guests and coverage in financial magazines, this ceremony was simple and deeply personal. Nova wore a knee-length dress in pale blue, a crown of fresh flowers in her hair. Grayson wore a light gray suit, no tie, his collar open at the throat. Elijah, now 6 months old and sitting up on his own, watched from the lap of Nova's friend Tanya, occasionally babbling happily as if offering his own commentary on the proceedings. When it came time for their vows, Grayson took both of Nova's hands in his, looking into her eyes with a depth of emotion that would have been impossible for him to show at their first wedding. "Nova," he began, his voice steady but full of feeling. "3 years ago, I thought I had lost you forever. I thought I had ruined the best thing that ever happened to me because I didn't know how to love properly, how to be present, how to put someone else's needs before my own. He glanced at Elijah, then back to Nova. Finding you again, seeing you on that hotel floor, carrying our child, was the wake-up call I needed. The miracle I didn't deserve but am grateful for every day. His grip on her hands tightened slightly. I promise you now, in front of our son and these witnesses, that I will never again take you for granted. I will be present, truly present, for every moment we share. I will support your dreams as fiercely as you've supported mine. I will be your partner in every sense of the word. Nova blinked back tears as she began her own vows. Grayson, loving you has never been the hard part, she said softly. Even when it hurt, I loved you. What was hard was believing that love was enough, that it could sustain us through the realities of life. She smiled, squeezing his hands. But these past months have shown me that with work, with commitment, with daily choices to put each other first, love can be enough. It can be everything. She glanced at their son, her expression softening even more. You've become a man I always knew you could be. A wonderful father, a true partner, someone who understands that real success isn't measured in dollars or deals, but in moments of connection and joy. Looking back at Grayson, she finished, I promise to continue this journey with you, to communicate honestly, to forgive generously, to love you completely. This time, we build our marriage on a foundation that will last. After they exchanged rings, simple platinum bands that matched the engagement ring Grayson had given Nova at Christmas, the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Again, Grayson whispered against Nova's lips as they sealed their vows with a kiss. Forever, she whispered back. The small gathering applauded as Tanya brought Elijah to them. Grayson lifted his son into his arms, and for a moment, the three of them stood together in the spring sunshine, a family rebuilt from broken pieces, stronger at the mended places. 1 year later, on a warm summer evening, Grayson sat on the porch swing of their Victorian home, Elijah on his lap. The little boy, now 18 months old, was pointing excitedly at a butterfly fluttering around the potted plants. Butterfly, he exclaimed, his vocabulary growing daily. That's right, buddy, Grayson said, smiling at his son's enthusiasm. Butterfly. The screen door opened, and Nova stepped out onto the porch. She had just returned from the art center, where she now worked 3 days a week as the assistant curator. The position allowed her to re-enter the art world she loved, while still having plenty of time with Elijah. How are my favorite men? She asked, sitting beside them on the swing. We're great, Grayson replied, shifting to make room for her. Just watching butterflies and waiting for Mama to come home. Nova leaned over to kiss Elijah's cheek, then Grayson's lips. I have some news, she said, a hint of excitement in her voice. Good news, I hope? Grayson asked, recognizing her expression. Very good, she confirmed. The director is retiring at the end of the year. He's recommended me as his replacement. Grayson's face lit up with pride. Nova, that's wonderful. You'd be perfect for the position. It would mean more hours, she cautioned. More responsibility. We'll make it work, he said without hesitation. Elijah and I will support you, just like you've supported us. Nova's smile was radiant. That's what I hoped you'd say. She settled against him, and they set the swing in gentle motion, Elijah babbling happily between them. The late afternoon sun cast long, golden shadows across the porch, and somewhere in the distance, a mockingbird sang. Are you happy? Nova asked, the question an echo of one Grayson had asked her that Christmas Eve when he proposed. He looked at her, at the woman who had given him a second chance when he least deserved it, but most needed it. At the son they had created together, a miracle in his own right. At the life they were building day by day, moment by moment. Completely, he answered honestly. You? Nova's smile was all the answer he needed, but she spoke the words anyway, more than I ever thought possible. As the swing rocked gently, Grayson reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the cold, successful man he had been, to the broken one he became when Nova left, to the husband and father he was now, present, engaged, truly alive for perhaps the first time in his life. It had taken nearly losing everything to realize what truly mattered. But in the end, on the floor where he had left her, he had found his way back to Nova. And in doing so, he had found his way back to himself. Not the man he had been, driven by ambition and fear of failure, but the man he was meant to be all along. One who understood that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or business acquisitions, but in moments like this, sitting on a porch swing with his wife and child as the day gently faded into evening. Rich beyond measure, in all the ways that truly counted. The end.